fitness wellness coaching. She has 30 years experience. And wow, so I'm really honored to have Miss Shelly here on the program. She has comes back from back in the day of group fitness, high, low impact classes. I hear you there. I'm from back in those days too. And has now shifted to functional fitness, mind and body, private and wellness coaching. So lots of experience on Shelly's end. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Oh
Awesome.
my
So
God,
let's
again.
We also had scheduled Pilar. I don't know if she's gonna if she logs in and joins us. I certainly welcome her to do so. But for now, we're going to move on with the program, and hopefully she can chime in a little bit later with her experience. So, as I mentioned, just to kind of give some perspective, we're going to talk a bit about the differences between the two programs. We're going to share some of our thoughts in terms of which one we think, the pros and cons of each. We're going to spill some tea, of course, talk about some behind the scenes stuff, and then really just hopefully provide instructors with some information, some knowledge that when you're making your decisions on what type of programs, what type of certifications to do, you kind of have a perspective of not just the book version perspective, but you got the behind the scenes perspective as well. So let's talk about the differences between fitness and branded fitness programs. As I mentioned, freestyle is where the instructor just puts together their own programming, and they design, they plan, they program the class, and they present it to their participants. For example, an instructor might put together like an exercise sequence for a dance fitness class or boot camp or indoor cycling. They put together their own programming and they present it. Whereas a branded fitness program is where you then go to a company and you purchase their programming or you take their workshops, you pay a fee for that. Sometimes it's just a one-time fee for the workshop and they give you information that you can take and use. Or other times it is a monthly fee that you pay for the resources that you're able to get their programming and their information to use in their classes. So I'm going to pose a question to my lovely panel based on that information. Tell us a little bit about what classes you teach and which of them are freestyle versus branded. So let's start with you, Alan. What are the classes that you currently teach right now?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the idea of high-low because back in the day, that's how I started out. So when we used to call it aerobics. So when I first got certified way back in the day, I was a freestyler and still am. So pretty much here are your fundamentals, here's your musicality, go. Make the world a better place. And that's pretty much what I do now. The one branded program that I am part of is the Masala Bhangra program, which is a combination of Bollywood and Bhangra dance, as well as what Serena Jane has called aerobic style. So that is the one branded program that I do. Everything else is more freestyle, but I primarily work more with dance fitness, but particularly I go into communities. So I work with children, youth, and seniors, and that is technically more freestyle. And my branded, which I currently do right now, is under Masala Bhangra.
Cool, cool. And how about you, Shelly? Tell us a bit about your programs.
Similar, very similar to Alan. I started from, yeah, everything I do is freestyle. You are given the foundation and you build your own from there. You make it your own. So everything that I do, I make my own.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I mean I do have some idea in my head, but I'm very flexible. You know, if anything should happen with music or environment, I can change it on a dime. Okay, we're gonna do this today instead. So I might have had an idea in my head, but then I can easily change it to something else.
Right,
And
right.
so, yeah, yeah, so everything is freestyle rather than branded. So my
Right.
own music, my own whatever I feel like.
Yeah, and I'm similar to I have a blend of both, just like with the two of you. I do have programs that I design myself, like mainly my body sculpt and like muscle conditioning type classes, flexibility. I create the programs and present it to my students. Over the years, I have dabbled in a few different brands, such as Bokwa, Zumba. I have done some branded programs in the past, but right now, pretty much all of my programs right now, I create and design, much like what you guys are doing, a little blend of both. At least with Alan, you have a blend
Mm-hmm.
of your own programming versus using some other company's programming.
Yep.
So let's dig into like what are some pros and cons. So maybe we'll start with you, Shelly. Tell me a little bit about what are some great things about teaching freestyle, and if you have taught a branded program, what are some pros that you found in either or? So pros, what are some great stuff?
Um, I am my own, I'm going to say I'm my own boss. I can do what I feel like. I can mix it up. If I feel like playing a different kind of music, I can do that. Or just like it's for me, it gets my brain, it keeps my brain sharp. It's because I've gone to other classes that have been branded and that are branded, and sometimes I just feel like everybody is just, you know, on autopilot, or okay, this is the hamstring song, this is the, like, they have this tunnel vision, right? This is the hamstring song, this is the bicep song, and so on. And I just think I just prefer to keep my mind going and just change it now and then, because even the body, I mean, the body adapts to if you do the same move, the same exercise every single day, then you, as we know as fitness pros, you plateau, right? Not that we're doing hardcore stuff in these classes anyway, we're not doing bodybuilding per se, but it's just that I just feel that, you know, it's just good for the brain to change it up and to force you to think differently.
Right. So you're able to just have a lot more creativity when you're doing your own programming, according to your own style, basically.
Yes, creativity. I think that's the main thing. That's what I'm all about, creativity. Having the free will to have my own creativity.
And how about you, Ella? What are some pros? You have, as you mentioned, both freestyle and you've also dabbled into branded program. What are some pros on each of those styles?
I think echoing what Shelly said, the idea of creativity and free will, you have the freedom. And I think ironically, when you're doing freestyle, you actually become your own brand. So you actually become your own identity. You're able to be yourself. I mean, back in the day, when we used to call it aerobics, there was one move that I can do now, but it was kind of a leg lift to the side. And I could never do that as a participant. But when I started freestyling, guess what? We never had that move in my class. So you're able to make it your own, to play to your strengths. And really, yes, the creativity and the free will. I say with the plateauing, the con could be that sometimes your creativity does plateau or you hit a wall. And if you are part of a branded program, the thinking is kind of done for you and the quality assurance is already there. So you can actually fall back on that, in that you can actually put more of your energy in facilitating and executing the choreography per se. So it kind of, I guess maybe that's a bit of a pro as well for the branded. I think the other pro with branded, and obviously the fitness community is a community. So both of you are, you're both my people. Having said that, for example, in Masala Bhangra, where you are branded, like even with the clothing, is that I can see another Masala Bhangra ambassador, and all we have to do is that, "Hoi, ballet, ballet," and right away there's a sense of community, not to the exclusion of everyone else, but it's kind of nice to have your teammates, right? So it does provide community. That being said, of course, the whole fitness community is a community, but it provides a little bit of a niche, which is kind of, it's nice as well, though. So I'd say those are definitely some pros for both freestyle and branded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I echo exactly what you're saying. Like, I find that I'm more of a freestyler. I appreciate having ideas as well presented to me, but I do like the fact that if I didn't memorize the program that was presented to me, I can, on the spot, based on the fundamentals and based on the principles, be able to still execute a good class without worrying that, oh no, I didn't say the right word according to the script. So it's, it is positive in the sense that, yes, freestyle, you can be creative, but the positive thing about branded is that you only have so much of a knowledge base, and that they oftentimes will give you ideas beyond what you may know in your own personal knowledge base. So we kind of touched a little bit about, we were kind of dabbling on the cons as well. I know not everything's going to be pretty and wonderful all the time. So let's talk a little bit about some of the drawbacks, freestyle versus branded programs. Maybe we'll start with you, Alan. What are some of the drawbacks you find in either side?
I think maybe one quick con would be that, for example, in dance-based programs, if you are teaching a style that is song by song or track by track, if there's a particular style that even in the urban genre that's maybe a little bit more funk, if it's not your style, sometimes the authenticity, I mean, we're learners, we soak it in, but sometimes there's just certain styles that's not you. And sometimes it's the struggle to really be adaptable and be versatile. But then sometimes, if you're freestyling, you can just leave that alone until you've perfected it, versus if you're branded, you still have to sell it and represent the brand. But then, ooh, it's not really my thing. The other thing over embodying is that we're always representing ourselves. But, the moment I wear, for example, a Masala Bhangra uniform, in a good way, but also a little bit of a con, there's the pressure because you're representing an entire brand. So you are an ambassador, and anything you do could potentially come back to that brand. So there is the pressure of that. And third, and really quickly, something that I learned from being an associate pro trainer, where I was training and certifying group fitness instructors, is that I had a lot of instructors who taught branded pre-choreographed programs, but when they were going for their certification, you can use, for example, like a body pump or a Zumba class, you can totally use that modality to become certified as a fitness instructor specialist. However, you need to show that you have the fundamentals, you can adapt, you can show corrections, you have musicality. And I always thought naively that everyone who teaches branded or pre-choreographed would just nail that, would be a natural at it. And then when I realized a bit of a con, oh, they actually were never taught the fundamentals in musicality. They're good at mastering the choreo that comes out, but I realize it's not always mutually exclusive. So I think a bit of a con is that chicken before the egg, some of those fundamentals were missing. Not always, but many times I've noticed that a lot of those fundamentals were missing for people who were exclusively branded pre-choreographed.
Mm-hmm. Good point. And again, as a pro trainer, you would definitely be able to speak to that. And Shelly, what are your thoughts on some drawbacks on, well, you do mainly freestyle. Are there any drawbacks or what do you find?
Sometimes I can feel like the music, it's not like I get bored easily, but I mean, sometimes I feel like I could use different music because as you two know, we play the same music a lot, right? Sometimes the participants don't always pick up on what you're trying to explain to them too easily. So, I mean, I guess you just have to adapt and figure it out a different way to explain it, how to explain it, right?
Yeah, for me, I'd say one of the biggest drawbacks is, or that choose freestyle is cost is one big thing. For example, when you do freestyle programming, you get your initial certification through whether it's ACE, AF, or canfitpro. And generally, besides the annual renewal, there isn't really any other cost besides music that you may need to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when a branded program, oftentimes there is the initial workshop that you have to take, and many times they want you to do like a monthly membership fee. So the cost can get a bit pricey when you're dealing with branded programs as opposed to freestyle, which you're not necessarily paying each time you need to program your class. With a freestyle, each time you need that, so with branded, each time you need a new program, you oftentimes have to pay them for that additional program. So that's another drawback to consider. It's more costly when you're dealing with branded programs as opposed to creating your own programming.
Mm-hmm.
That
You guys find that?
That is definitely my impression, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's dig into from the participants' perspective, like talk a bit about, have you gotten feedback from your participants when you're teaching freestyle versus a branded program? What are their kind of reactions? Or even if you, like in your case, Shelly, if you're not teaching branded, have you noticed participants, what their reaction is and how they respond to either style of programming?
From my side, I do get some people. I've actually switched to more of, I've transferred to more of a coach role than instructor. And I have noticed, well, that some of the participants have noticed, and they've come to me and told me that you know, one woman came to me one day and she asked how long I've been teaching. So I told her and so on. And she said, you're more like a coach, not instructor. Like she observed that I'm very detailed with I sound like a broken record about alignment and the reason, explaining the reason for the exercise. But other people don't get it. I can tell by their facial expressions. You know, I just have to do my best to try and help them along the way. But I know it's a bit of both. It's some people really like it. Other people, they think it's too hard, even though I'm not even doing hardcore exercises. Do you know what I'm saying? I think one example is I work slower. I work at a slower pace, not slow, but slower pace rather than da 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 da. Da 4, 3, 2, switch. You get full range of motion. You're moving your entire body with the way that I work out myself and the way that I run my sessions, most of them, depending on what they are. And so some of them find it bloody hard. And, some come back and some don't, but that's the way it's been with me. I get a little bit of both, but I think they are starting to figure it out, because even if I don't have 50 people in my class, I'd rather do small group training anyway, because I can keep a better eye on a smaller group, smaller number, right? So yeah. I don't care if I don't have 50 to 100 people in my class. I don't care. If I had the same 10 people or 8 people or 12 people coming back week after week, then that tells me that they're getting something out of it.
And I think that just speaks to the fact that people are going to find, people are just going to find, they're going to connect to different instructors. So no matter what you do, for the freestyle or branded, we're all going to have different styles, and people are just going to connect to us on different levels in that respect. So I think that speaks to that. We can't be all things to all people. So everyone's just going to gravitate to who works best for what their needs are, right? And Alan, how about yourself? Do you notice a difference that when you're presenting a freestyle versus a branded, how do the participants sort of react to those two different styles?
I think to piggyback on something you said about the connection that you have with an instructor, it's kind of that whole chicken before the egg of, especially in group fitness, why are they coming to that shared space? And a lot of times it's their fellow participants, but also it's the instructor. So I think to answer, just speaking for myself as a participant and a workshop attendee, of course, there is what the instructor or presenter is offering, but there are certain presenters, I'd say, both of you as conference attendees, there are certain presenters that, a little bit of an exaggeration, but if they honestly, within reason, talked about their favorite books and baked cookies, I think I would be the first one in line, and I'd be just absorbing it because I'm there for them. And I think that, especially now with online learning, I mean, there's things that you could really, I think you go for the experience. So I think it's, again, if you're the full package, a lot of the times, people are truly going, I mean, yes, the movement, but I think they're going for that individual instructor and that experience that they offer. And we all know, even as participants, like the one time you have to sub a class, it's always difficult because there's already a trust and a connection there. So obviously versus branded or freestyle, and I've seen this, it doesn't matter if it's freestyle or branded, the moment that that instructor is not there, I'm even a little bit guilty of it myself. There's a little bit, oh, where's so-and-so? Because you're going for the actual person. And I think, fundamentally, if you're a quality-based instructor, I think whatever you do, you bring your authenticity. And yes, it's about the movement, but in the end, it's about the experience and the happiness that you leave them. So I think a lot of it, and that's my bias, I think a lot of it depends on the instructor. And just really quickly to close, I remember as a pro trainer, having visited a past instructor who I certified, and they were doing a more dance-based branded style. And then they came up to me after the class, said, Alan, I kind of, maybe 60% of that is actually my own thing. And I told them, I said, okay, I know that, but I think your average participant, I think even if they know, it's a non-issue because they're there for you. And again, I come back to the baking cookies within reason, but I think there's some of them that I just want to share space and that experience. So I think it comes down to knowing your fundamentals and coming from an authentic place. Branded or freestyle, I think it can sometimes maybe be a muted point.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, I definitely agree with you on that level that it's not so much the script, it's the delivery. It's about what you bring to the table and how you help. I mean, we're more than just movement specialists. We're really there to bring an experience, help people deal with stress. I mean, I've had crying moments with my participants sometimes because they were just going through something. I'm like, you know what, forget about it. We're just going to hug it out right now because let's deal with what's on your mind right now. So it's more than just, whether it's a branded program, here are the steps or whatever. It's about creating spaces where people can feel alive and feel like it's the best part of their day, right? So let's spill some tea. so, so, um, I want to, in this moment right now, I want to make it very clear that not here to put down any particular program, whatever, but it's kind of like if my BFF came to me and said, hey, I'm thinking about going on vacation. I heard that you went to this spot. I read the reviews or I saw the pictures. I saw it's a nice beach, but tell me what was it like? You want your BFF to give you the lowdown, like how was the hotel? How was it? Like, tell me the real deal, kind of thing. So I'd like us to just dig into that a little bit and just kind of let people know, like if somebody were to come to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about getting this program, what do you think? What is better to go with? Like, tell me, do you have any experiences to share with anybody out there, an instructor that you could say, hey, this is great, but watch out for this. I'll let anyone jump in because I know I have some tea to spill too.
Okay. I'm going to go with the last and actually only, okay, I'm going to say this, the second and last branded program that I participated in was Groove Fitness. And I know, Ellen, you know Groove, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I did too.
You okay?
With Mitzi, yeah, that's my girl.
Yeah. Now here is my thing. This was years ago. This is over 10 years ago. When I was out of CanFit for a couple of years, and I came back, and I went to this, mystical transfusion, and I ended up bawling. Oh, like I love that. I was just in bliss, and I was going through stuff. My dad was really sick, and I wasn't sure if either of you have been through a parent being sick. I don't know if you have or not, but it's a surreal feeling. I was not in a good, strong headspace back then because I had been tossed out from the YMCA, and the short version is I had PTSD and some major issues with that, which I don't go into. But I did the Groove class, and I just lost it. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. How do I do this? What do we do? And then I got into the teacher training. Fantastic, loved it. We did have our community. But then I noticed the whole thing about being free with your body and not being judgmental and not caring because nobody cares. I noticed cliquiness within that group, which I was not thrilled with. There have been times where I was dismissed in conversation, and my body looked different back then. I was a different person than I was back then. I made a complete transformation a few years ago, both mentally and physically. I just noticed cliquiness, and the whole thing about the licensee came up, and if you pay this much, you'll have access to the logo and all this promotional material. Okay, well, where is it? And then there became a snag with, oh, wait a second, we're just making some changes. So they canceled our payments, and then they came up with, oh, this whole program was, based on authenticity. Okay, so then they came up with, oh, okay, we're back. Pay your money to do your recertification, and then you'll have access to the promotional material. And at that point, I was pissed. I was just like, okay, you know what? So the two of them were not, they're dangling the carrot. I wrote to them on Facebook, and I basically gave them shit for this whole thing. And one of them did get back to me. It was Misty that got back to me and said, oh, I'm sorry about, it's a new business. And no. So I learned from that experience to never get involved in another branded class again, because how on earth do you justify having to get people to recertify for something that is based solely on authenticity? Right? So enough of that. So, but I do love the whole concept of the Groove, but the reality is that I tried, this is another thing, I tried offering demos, free demos. I tried telling everyone about it. No one responded. No one responded positively. It was either no response or, oh, that sounds good. Oh, but I like being told what to do, right? And I voiced my concerns with the community, and all I would see is, hey, go to Mel's class. Hey, go to this person's class. Hey, nothing about me, nothing for Shelly, nothing, right? So therein lies the cliquiness. And these women were smaller framed and so on. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So I really started to, the smoke and the flash in the pan just lifted, and I saw things for what they really were. And, I don't, as a result, I will never buy into another branded program ever again.
Yeah, that's sad because I mean, I don't know if you have a bit of an echo. Does anybody have their
A little bit.
YouTube on? Okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I did the same program. I mean, I love the concept of it as well. I didn't have that experience like what you went through, but I can see how that can happen, because that's the thing about with many of these programs is that they create a community, or they create a culture, which in one way, like we were talking about earlier, Alan, in one way it's great. You can see somebody that has a t-shirt on or whatever, and you're like, hey, and you have a move or whatever. But on the other side, sometimes it can create, some of the drama that can go on. And so it's kind of like, you kind of have to weigh ahead of time, how much do you want to get involved in the community side, or do you just want to focus on just delivering the fundamentals to your clients? Like you, I did the whole weekend program. It was quite costly. I tried to sell it. I love it personally, but I realized that many participants can't really get into that space. You have to really be free and be able to not be told exactly where to put your foot all the time. So it's not for everybody, it's not to say it's a bad program. It's just a matter of finding that niche can be a bit of a headache. All right. Did you want to jump in, Alan, or should I jump in with a little bit of tea?
I think just to backtrack, something that I was talking with a career counselor. So just to kind of go a bit of on a tangent, but it's directly related to this. Like, what would I tell a BFF who's going into this industry? Alan, I'm a dance-based person. Do I do more freestyle or more branded programs? And I always am paraphrasing. It's a quote by, I think it's Richard Boyles. I might have gotten the name wrong, but it talks about that many people, they fail to find their dream job, not because they have a failure or they fail to understand the job market. The reason they fail is because they fail to have an understanding of themselves. So I think what you're looking, so for me with Masala Bhangra, anyone who knows me, because I'm also a Bollywood dancer, and I think enough said, right? Anyone who knows me knows that I can totally see why you're with that brand. And I totally connect to Serena Jane's story because, really briefly, as a daughter of immigrant parents, about how you could actually have both. An American life as well as her Indian heritage, and bring both. Like, I connect to her story, and it's very much my movement. So I think, like anything else, is again that chicken before the egg is understand yourself. And exactly, one program could be someone's paradise, and it's not for someone else, not because it's bad, but it's not aligning with their values and identity. So I think before you do is check yourself first and understand where you're coming from, what your core values are, what are the values that you will just not compromise. And if that program aligns with that, I think that's a good pathway into, this is definitely for me. It's maybe not for someone else, but that's okay because we're all different. I think it's understanding your values. And I think the second thing is that I remember back in the day coming from freestyle fitness and even my background as an urban hip hop dancer. So I definitely value the idea of freedom, being a disruptor. I'm like, no, not status quo. I'm going to do my own thing and then, even being a Scarborough boy, right? Like, no, I'm doing my own thing, this and that. But then I remember, having a mentor, and I know, Dione, you're quite close to him as well. But I remember back in the day, someone like Lawrence Biscontini, in a way to very compassionately, but to crack the whip on me, where back in the day when I was a little cheeky, well, I'm not going to do, the branded because I'm going to do my own thing. And in classic Lawrence fashion, Lawrence said, Alan, seek first to understand, basically. And he said, yeah, it might not be for you, but understand the value of what those programs are doing and truly make an informed choice of whether or not it's for you or not for you. Because you want to be careful that you're not making any value judgments. Do your homework, understand that there are bringing some quality-based movements to the masses in a packaged way. And it might not be for you, but like anything else is, so I think just to end it off is understand yourself, know your values, but also do your homework and truly make an informed choice, shop around. And again, just be very careful that you're not being judgmental. Just keep that open mind to really say that, and something also I learned from Misty too, is that, I'm going to try that out, but if it's not gelling with me, but the point is do your homework though. So I think that's just the advice that I would give to anyone seeking my advice about should they do branded or freestyle is, check and understand yourself and also do the homework with the brand as well.
Excellent. I definitely agree. And just to speak on the homework, which as I mentioned, I promise to spill some tea, is not just about the actual, how the program is put together, but the behind the scenes stuff, what's going to happen. So you guessed it, I'm going to spill some tea with Zumba. So I'm going to try to keep it so that I don't get too much more hate mail. But I've been teaching, as you guys know, for 20 years, from 1999, back in the day, high-low, what have you. And then when Zumba came on the scene at the conference, I'm like, okay, this seems interesting. Like you, Alan, I was kind of like, I don't know, about this thing. It seems too gimmicky. But then again, I had an open mind and thought, you know what, let's give it a shot, because I saw how well they were marketing the program. And as an entrepreneur, I was looking at it from the perspective of this could be a business opportunity. This could be something I can offer to people who are asking. I wanted to make sure that I was someone that I've always been the kind of person that I want to be indispensable. So when people say, can you do this? I want to be like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Right. So, 2009 is when I got the license. And I certainly had my concerns, because like many of you, I like to focus on fundamentals. And it did concern me that this program basically was anybody with a credit card can get a license. And I was like, what? But this person over here doesn't know their left from the right foot, not to be judgmental, but if we're all instructors, I think that there should be a quality, there should be some kind of quality assurance to ensure that we are providing people with, with quality, as well as that we're not harming our industry, So it did concern me that the way that they allow people to carry their brand name, there was no measurement. It was just a matter of once you paid, at the end of the day, they gave you this piece of paper that said that you were an instructor. But in any case, I still made it my own, did my thing, added my own freestyle elements of it. And after a number of years, I decided to cancel my membership, because I had so much music piling up and DVDs of choreography. I felt that I don't think I need any more of this. I have a pretty good library. And I was shocked to see on the other end the response of people, what I call the Zumba culture, not the participants. I'm talking about the instructors. There's a culture, emphasis on the first four letters of that word, that doesn't always support people that are out there doing their thing, trying to be successful. So that really is where I would caution people that if you're deciding to go with a branded program, investigate the culture. Are they people that are going to interfere with your business, interfere with your ability to be able to do your work without interference? Or are they going to, is it just like a crapshoot? So I just want to share something really interesting that came to me. So what I find is not just from the instructors that may have some issues with you going out there doing your thing, but shortly after I started teaching that program, I started getting an onslaught of hate mail. Like I couldn't believe, like from other instructors having issues with me. And I've never experienced that with any other program ever. And it was just really bizarre to me. And not only that, even though I canceled my membership, 2015 is when I canceled it, I have still been, in my opinion, stalked and hunted by the legal department from Zumba. And I'll just share this really interesting letter I got recently with you guys. Let's see how to share this. And you guys can jump in if you've had anything similar. But I'm just going to share this that I got recently. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It says
There.
So I got this just early this year, February the 16th, 2020. And again, I canceled my membership 2015. And I'm still getting these letters from their legal department. And here, this person, Alan Veronica or whatever from the legal department is indicating that my license is expired, which I cancel it. And just to jump to the main point of it, he's saying that you're receiving this letter because according to our records, your Zin or Zumba Instructor Network membership and or basic one license is expired. As a result, you're no longer authorized to teach Zumba classes. If you're still teaching classes, your actions in teaching them without a license not only hurts the community of licensed instructors in your country, but subjects you to liability and damages for infringing our intellectual property rights. Now, I found this interesting because, again, this was dated February the 16th, 2020. And I'm thinking, well, why would I get this? Because I don't use their logos, or I don't teach under their name. And then it occurred to me, could it be because of this? I'm going to share something else with you. So just earlier this year, I hosted an event. Can you see this picture here, this poster?
Yes.
February the 15th, right? I get 4 days later from their legal department claiming that, you know, this weird letter about, you know, infringing on their copyright laws. But nowhere on this poster is there a Zumba logo, trademark, nothing. And this has happened not just once, but many times I've gotten stuff from their legal department saying, blah, 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 you know, trying to get me to pay them money because they copyright infringement. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is not, again, I'm not trying to knock the company. I think that dancing as a whole is fantastic. You know, I love to dance and do fitness. But if you're going to go with a branded program, be mindful that this particular branded program, they are known for going after people, particularly former members, and threatening and, you know, in my opinion, bullying people to try to get them back into to paying the membership fees, which at the end is really about money. It's about making the owners as rich as possible, which is fine. If you want to go make your money, it's fine. But when you're kind of threatening and bullying people to say, well, because you're dancing or standing on the stage, you should pay us money, I think that's a bit crazy, personally. So, you know, that's just my spilling the tea on that level. Is just like, just be careful. Like when you're going with a branded program, understand that sometimes there's a culture that comes with it that may be a bit ugly. And I don't know if you guys want to jump in on that at all.
Oh, yes. Can you see? Oh.
I drink my tea.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Nobody owns dance. Nobody owns yoga. Yoga's been around for how many thousands of years? You know, I've had people say to me, "You're so good. You should be a Zumba instructor." And I'm like, dude, and I've subbed for Zumba. I've filled in a pinch, and I have some Latin music, and I've thrown stuff. Ironically, here's what I like to do, because I like to move around anyway. If I do a group fitness cardio type of class, I usually have everybody moving around the entire room. So I put in the groove style with my classes, and it makes them work harder. And then I see them laughing and looking at each other and giggling and stuff and playing around. And that to me is great, right? Instead of everybody just forming a line and staring at themselves in the mirror, you know. But yeah, the whole thing about, are you certified? Honey, I've been certified for 30 years. It's okay, I can help you out. Do you need my help? You know, especially when we get calls for subs in for some classes, like, well, I can help you. But are you certified? Honey, it's okay, don't be afraid. I can get them to clap and tap at the same time. It's okay, it's okay. Really, it's okay.
Well, I think when they say certified, not to cut you up, but they mean, are you licensed in that brand? And I think that the issue that I have is that it's a brand name. It's just like wearing a Nike t-shirt or whatever. Doesn't mean that you can't, if you're making t-shirts, you can make a t-shirt. But if you want to put Nike on it, yes, you have to get their permission, right? So it's the same thing. You can teach a dance fitness class and you can call it Alan's Boogie Down class. Exactly. But if you want to put a particular brand name, then you have to get their permission, right? So my issue is that, you know, you have these people, like, again, I don't use their brand name, and I've gotten, that's just one letter. I've gotten many letters from them saying, we saw you. There was one event last year I did. I was a guest instructor, and the host, they were calling it, you know, they had a Zumba logo on the flyer. Again, I'm not hosting the party. I didn't make the flyer. And I got a letter from their legal department claiming copyright infringement. I'm like, you need to call the host. Why are you calling me? I came there, I taught my 20 minutes or whatever, and that was it. So it's just like, again, I agree with you, Shelly, like nobody owns the cha-cha. you know, you and just be careful that, people aren't trying to bully you into saying, pay me money because you did this.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. I've been in this business for a long time, and if I didn't love it, I would have been gone a long time ago. But I just new people in the industry versus veterans. As far as I'm concerned, you don't need, I noticed in the States, there's a platform on let's say on social media, and all these women have about 17 different certifications.
Or licenses, or they're actually
licenses. How much money are they putting out for all of these, right? You need a base, you need a foundation. If you don't know how to use a stability ball, take a workshop, and then, oh man, your world is opened up to a whole bunch of different ideas, right? You don't need to be certified to touch that ball. You don't need to be certified to touch dumbbells. So if I can offer any advice to any new person, it's, have fun with it, explore, but yes, just think for a minute, save your money, right? Learn from other people, take workshops, but just know that you don't have to keep putting out all this money to stretch to, it's just funny. What I'm finding is that there's a lot of recycled programs out there. There's presenters that are reinventing the wheel. They put their own spin on it, and I'm not knocking them, because if it works, it's working for them, then fantastic. So I don't get pissed off at them thinking, well, how come they're making all the money and I'm not? Okay, so what I need to do is figure out, what can I do so that I can become more recognized, right? But I do laugh sometimes, because the whole thing about reinventing the wheel with certain programs, they can put whatever name on them, but it's still hit.
Yeah, and you have to, as I said, you have to kind of look and see if you're putting money into a workshop. Like, I believe in continuing education, but at the same time, you have to say, okay, how much money am I spending in this thing, and what am I getting out? So, and just to clarify, license versus certification. Certification is where there's an actual test, and you have to, like, as you know, Alan, if you don't pass the test, you don't get the paper. Whereas a license is you pay, and then it doesn't matter how you do, they're going to give you that paper and say, here, you can teach this program, right? So I think the issue is that those of us who are certified know that there's only a certain amount of certifications, and that's it. You get it, and that it lasts for however long, unless you have to renew every 3 or 4 years, whatever it is, right? Whereas these licenses, oftentimes, like you touched on it earlier, Alan, they oftentimes don't teach the fundamentals, because it's a license, it's not a certification. It's take your money, here's some programs and ideas, and off you go. But then again, is a person getting a full value out of what they're putting in? If you see what I'm saying, right? I don't know if you want to add to that, Alan, or not.
I was just thinking, so a few quick things. Going back, I remember Dione when Beto first came to canfitpro, and obviously, just took, the fitness industry has never been the same after Zumba, and I still enjoy Zumba, but I think it's also understanding that I remember when I went to Miami, the birthplace of Zumba, and I did a Zumba class in Miami in Coral Gables, where actually it was all ages, and actually there was a good portion of the class who did not fully speak English. Spanish was their and all I can say is, just really quickly, that was a whole other level. I mean, I think to understand fundamentally like what it could possibly offer in a different context. So like, I always remember that. That's one of my memories of truly being in a very different environment where, wow. So I totally remember that. I think the other thing is that, like anything else, do your homework, but do your due diligence with, so in Canada, SOCAN in tandem coverage as well as liability insurance. I think it's one of those things that you cannot neglect as an instructor. You know, it's kind of like travel insurance. I always like the expression that you actually want to lose money on travel insurance because that means you're not using it. So I think, you know, do your homework. And I think just in anything else, going back to, I love how Dione, how you mentioned, like, what would I say to a BFF who's thinking of either freestyle or branded? How do they navigate the things that Shelly and you have brought up? And I'm going to bring back to another valuable piece of advice that a presenter expressed in their workshop. And I'm not going to name the presenter because the presenter talked about some personal stories around this advice, but it always stayed with me. And I think it's very pertinent to the idea of, do you do branded, let's say? And the advice that was given to them was, never lose your name, never lose your identity. And what happened is that, hypothetically, because I'm drinking Twinings or Twinnings tea, is that they belonged to, let's say, Twinings, and then they were paid to go into various conferences and teach the Twinings fitness brand. But this presenter always made it a point that if they had to teach 4 workshops on Twinings body sculpt, that they reserved 1 workshop that they negotiated that it was going to be them. It was their own style. Even if it meant losing money, it was an investment in their own brand though. And what happened is that something like Twinings, that fitness brand collapsed. It fell under. And I think that's for many of us, is that if your brand, if your modality, especially with these times now with the pandemic, if it was taken away from you quite suddenly, if you don't have yourself, if you lose your name, then what do you have? You have nothing. So always have a safe house, a plan B, and no one can ever take your name away from you. And I think that's the thing with branded, is that by all means, you know, if it's Masala Bhangra, if it's Zumba, if it's Pound Fitness, like whatever it is, at the same time, the balance, the yin yang of it is never lose your name, because there are things that are beyond your control. And if that's taken away from you, then what do you have? So it comes back to yourself and your values of what value do you bring? And I think it's just an over embodying top of funnel advice is branded or freestyle to any instructor, whether you've been in the industry as long as I have or just starting out, is I always remember that one presenter and I really thank them for that advice that was given to them early in their career of never lose your name.
I agree. That's excellent advice. And, you know, and I want to also just reiterate, we're not at all putting down any particular programs or brands. It's just a matter of letting people know what our experiences have been. And I, you know, whether it be Zumba or Bokwa or Pound, or I've done Groove, all that, I saw great value in all of them, because they give you some templates to give you ideas, but at the same time, you got to weigh all the different factors. So you're right, Alan. I do believe that these were things that I saw as tools, but they don't define me as an instructor. You still got to keep who you are, your name, because like with any product or service, those of us who study marketing and understand product life cycles, every product has a life cycle. And, you know, it doesn't mean it's a bad product. It's just that things move on. Like, that's why we don't still use 8 tracks, you know. Things move on, and it's a matter of being able to ride the tide and still come out successful and do your profession. So I think we're just about coming to the end of our broadcast, and just want to check to see if there are any questions that popped up on in the background. Not yet. Okay, great. So just before we close, I just want to make sure that, again, I wanted to thank very much my lovely panel for coming in today, Alan and Shelly. I'm going to post their information at the end of the broadcast, so that if you want to find out more information, you'll get their information at the end, and their social media tags, what have you. And yeah, thank you very much for your time. Is there any final things that you want to say before we close for today, for any new instructors, existing instructors, or just any final thoughts that you want to share for today?
I'm just going to echo that. I really love what Alan said. Oh, never lose yourself. Agreed. Be authentic. Be authentic. Being authentic. I know in the beginning you're going to copy, because you don't have your own. You haven't found your own yet. But if you just remain authentic, that's going to carry you through forever, for however long you want to be in the industry.
Agreed, definitely agreed. Yeah, so it's great to have a leg up to help you. And then from that point, you can perhaps move on to your own thing or continue on. But yeah, I agree. Don't lose yourself. Still be true to who you are. All right. Well, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. And hopefully we're able to provide you with some insights, spilling the tea. Thank you, Alan, for sharing your tea. And if you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to share at the end of this program in the comment section, message me. And if there's any other topics that you'd like for us to cover, by all means, let me know. Other than that, have a fantastic day. And don't forget to share some tea with some friends. Take care and all the best.